I'm Ros Woolner, and this is Pruning the Laurel. 3 points of contact with the tree, the way my mother taught me. 2 feet, 1 hand, one free to hold the saw. A smell of bay leaves now, pale sawdust on my clothes like flour, the thump as each branch hits the ground. I'm high enough to see across 5 gardens, wheelbarrows and washing lines, a football goal, a Wendy house. My neighbour steps outside. "Where's hubby then?" he asks, his meaning clear. Things must look different from down there. I guess I seem quite small to him, my saw no bigger than a bread knife. Not sure, I say, my eyes on what I'm doing, 1 hand on the saw, 3 points of contact. What did you want him for?
My name's Katrina Campbell, and this is my poem, Black. The pattern round the hole in the window pane looks like a snowflake cut from cellophane. Snow scar, or scatter from a 9mm bore. I stay back, in case more fall. The marks on your left rib have faded to a net of pale red ink. A finely needled claret, hidden under your chest hair. Even so, I can't forget the flake that settled there.
I'm Ros Woolner, and this is The Last Changing Room. No mirror, just a bin for skirt and top, knickers, bra, shoes, socks, and on a hook, one garment, a coat of moss. Its emerald tufts are springy to the touch. You slip your arms inside the sleeves, feel the cool earth lining on shoulders, hips, thighs, the backs of your knees. When you walk out, barefoot, stomach still bulging with bulbs under your green pelt, the birds carry on singing, and you carry on too, down the road and up into the hills where there's bracken, wild ponies, a stream, and rain. Yes, rain.
Hi, my name's Camille Breward and this is my poem, She's Not Out of the Woods Yet. She's not out of the woods yet, and there's no map for this, and the compass is spinning and she's feverish and forgetful and can't find her way. Reluctant adventurer, my grandmother sets out, empty basket in frail hand, red cardigan tattered and frayed, walking into a fairy tale. My grandfather calls sometimes through a rusty tin can phone, discarded by kids in capes on the needle-lined forest floor. It's rare to hear just his voice, alone.
This poem is called Where Are Your Architecture Critics Now? At midnight, I am a resident of myself, soft and yellow as the butter I craved for 5 years, and fearing collapse into my own foundations. My wife keeps the island wrapped round her, singing as she sleeps. On a nearby latitude, a bunker has been built. Viewed south, you call it gratitude. Viewed north, you call it guilt. If only. Up on the hill, away from home's carrion, I bite the useless blade of my pencil. A decade of keeping the perfect doll's house for this. If I could laugh, I'd call it modern, but the concrete fills my mouth like a brace. The question bites my dreams again and again. Bullets spat from the gun-hard face of a commandant I have never seen. I shan't go back to bed.
From ridge to ridge is a 4-year-old's stride. From furrow to furrow, the same. She weaves the warp and weft of beach, sand hops, counts 1, 2, 3, 4, then turns towards the setting sun 5, 6, 7, 8. Her rainbow boots reflect retreating streams which thread past sculptured ripples on the strand. She sews sea fabric, tacks and hems her world, while overhead a seagull imitates by stitching clouds, crisscrossing mackerel skies, swoops and soars, embroiders wisps of dusk, flies landward, silhouetted to its roost, looks out, then up, then out to sea and sleep.
Hi, I'm Emily Hunt, and this is my poem School Bus. For a moment I'm inscribed, reflected, my face a canvas of copper, russet, a ripening landscape. Spun gold stitches defining my features, hair woven into hedgerow and copse, gorse plumes and hilltops, an ivy-eyed blink as twigs etch icily upon grimy glass. I'm aground in a sea of burgundy, mustard, navy, of overpacked rucksacks, ringtones, lip gloss, mobile phones, as the bus's kaleidoscope heart splutters to life, as we lurch away, as I watch myself go.
Armin's Vessel, Sonnet to Surrender. I want to write poems and recite them to my ceiling fan. If you won't listen, maybe you'll take your place and say je t'aime to this ink like waves on paper hidden. I want to lie naked and surrender to the ashes on my skin, the smoke in my eyes. Hurry now, we've got dinner for two, waiting in the big beautiful sky. Let's eat in the nude on a shooting star. Maybe catch a movie, cheesy rom-com we can laugh about as we drive our car, fast to feel the sand blow out of my palm. The waves in outer space roll forever. Sit with me. One day they'll wash us over.
Hi, my name is Robert Ebnerstedt, and this is my poem, Modern Foreign Language. I can speak a foreign language, yet I can't say how I truly feel. I can prepare an advanced titration, yet I can't prepare a meal. I can work out any maths problem, but not how to be happy. I know exactly how a baby grows, but can't change my cousin's nappy. Can adults read the future? They often tell me what lies in store if I put my head down, do my work, and write till my hands sore. This generation listens, lesson after lesson. We learn everything you tell us. You don't tell us about depression. You don't tell us how to spend our money, but that we'll have none if we fail. I know a balanced diet, but not what a balanced lifestyle should entail. You tell us about exams, that they're the point of no return. You teach us about the environment, whilst the world you gave us burns.
Hello, my name's Kate Clancy, and I was the judge for this year's Guernsey International Poetry Competition. I'm a writer, but I'm also a teacher, and what I especially do is teach poetry, so I do read a lot of beginning poems by people who are not necessarily published poets yet. And it's coming from that place that I would just like to say how incredibly high the standard of the poems that I had to judge this year was. I got this huge bundle of poems in the post. And, you know, usually when you have a huge bundle, you think that you're going to be able to move through them very competently and very quickly pick out the very few which are good. And that simply wasn't the case. Normally you'd have an initial read through and then there'll be a small pile of yeses and a large heaps of no's. But when I went through the Guernsey lot this time, I really had many more yeses than no's. And I think what I was noticing was that there must be an awful lot of people out there who clearly reading a lot, who have been on long apprenticeships, who have been perhaps on writing courses, But not only that, not only was the surface of the poems, incredibly well finished, beautifully presented. People who clearly knew how to break a line, how to present a poem. But there was deep feeling and wide reading, all present in poem after poem. So that was great for British poetry, but it was quite tough winnowing for me. And I had to read through my piles at least 3 more times. And each time I had to make my criteria tougher. So I was looking for not just a good poem, but a deeply ambitious poem. Not just a good poem, but one that only used fresh new language all the way through. Not just a good poem, but a completely original one, until I managed to get my heaps down a bit. So if you're looking at this judge's report thinking, what happened to my poem? It wasn't that it wasn't read. It wasn't that it wasn't read with appreciation. It's just that possibly it got outmaneuvered by a poem that was slightly sharper or brighter in one of those reasons, one of those criteria. But one of the great things about my enormous pile of yeses, which I still had after 3 winnowings, was that at least I had several prizes to give. So there was a special category for Guernsey residents, and there was definitely a special flavour to those Guernsey poems that I had. They're very fresh, nature-themed poems, and I was very pleased that I was able to reward a poem that I especially liked, one about a grandmother with dementia, and give it a prize that I wouldn't necessarily have been able to otherwise with all the overwhelming number of yeses I had. And then we had another great idea this year, which is a poem for a bus. And I love that idea because competitions very often reward longer poems. People with great big heaps like me, you can come down on saying, oh, well, I'll go for a very long poem because that's definitely good. It's definitely weighty. If you're looking for something on a bus, you have to looking for something that's shorter and brighter, that's going to shine out when you're on the move. And young people's, so it was great to be able to choose just some really imagistic, almost surreal poems to fit that category, and I love our entries for that. And then there was young people's poetry, which is developing a hugely strong profile across the UK right now. And there was an immense and wildly diverse pile of entries to look through. And I'm very proud of the variety I managed to choose, because there was comedy and tragedy and protest, and then actually a very elegant formed, sophisticated poem as well, all in the final top 3 in the young people's. So I managed to reward a Guernsey resident. I managed to pick out several poems which I thought would be fantastic on the bus, and I managed to reward young people's poems, and that took my piles down a little bit, but it still left me with a huge problem of a large number of poems that I really would have loved to have rewarded. I just had 3 prizes to give at the end, and I could easily have given 20. So if you are still listening here and listening for the bit that says about what happened to your poem, maybe it was in that top 20. It's quite likely. In the end, when you're looking at those 20 poems that could all win, you're looking almost for your things that appeal to you personally. And personally, I like form to be present, referred to, a thing that people know about, but understated. So there was, in the one poem, had a kind of underlying sonnet, and that appealed to me. I like wit to be in a poem, and I like social observation, but I also like to be moved. I like to have some deep, strong emotion which pulls me in. And there was wonderfully raw, present emotion in that runner-up poem, Flack. But most of all, I like to read something that I've never read before, something truly unexpected. And I'd never read a poem about feminism and hedge trimming. And in the end, that created our winner. And I hope you all read that poem because it's great. So if you are still listening and you still haven't found out what's happened to your poem, I'm really glad you entered this poetry competition, because poetry competitions have a function which is that they get you to finish things. And I know that your poem was worth finishing, and it was worth putting it in the post. And that's a really important thing that a poetry competition can do. The bad thing that poetry competitions can do is leave people like you feeling that they weren't read. I do promise, if you entered this year, I do promise that you were read. You were read several times, you were heard, you were thought about. And if you weren't in the yes heap, that's only because the piles were so full of so much excellence. If you weren't in the last few winners, it's only because the standard was so great. Please carry on writing your poems. Please carry on finishing your poems, and offer them to the competition next year. And maybe next time it will be you. Thank you so much for entering and for listening.